do want to acknowledge the traditional owners on which I meet with you today virtually. I'm coming to you from the land of the Darug people, so I want to acknowledge owners past, present and future, and acknowledge that this always has, always will be Aboriginal land. So with our amazing work experience program that we started yesterday, we hope you are starting to do your coding credential through the Prodigy learning portal. That's part of the skills part of this work experience and skills program. But then the work experience side of things is exposing you to the IT industry and what's happening in that IT industry, the potential careers in that industry as well. So this is the first of our sort of guest speaker panel experiences. So I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves after I introduce myself. So for those of you who I haven't met yet as part of this program, my name is Megan Towns. I work on the Microsoft team, Microsoft Education team, and I work as a modern workplace specialist. I'm going to challenge everyone on the panel to do this. I'm going to describe what I do without using any Microsoft acronyms or lingo, which is quite a challenge for a lot of Microsoft employees. But basically, I work with schools and I support their IT departments to implement and manage all of their Microsoft technologies. So that's everything from my personal favorite, Minecraft, through to their Microsoft devices, Windows devices, as well as their teaching and learning platform through Office 365. So that's what I do. I'll now, I'm going to just go on my screen left to right. So over to Lachlan to introduce himself and what he does.
Awesome, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Lachlan Broom. I currently work within our Microsoft Experience Centre. So I'm not too sure how many of you guys have made it down to Pitt Street, right within the CBD. But essentially, that's essentially my home base and where I work. So I've got a team of 8 currently. So essentially, I look after a team of 8 account managers who work directly with education customers, small businesses, through to larger enterprise businesses as well. And we essentially try to work with those customers to ensure that they're essentially utilising the right devices from our Surface range of devices, and also our right cloud offerings as well. So yeah, that's essentially my role in a nutshell. I'll pass back to you, Megan.
Excellent, and I'm going to handball over to Claire.
Yay! Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening to us today. Thanks, Megan, for the invitation. My name's Claire White. I am the Education Marketing Manager. So I sit in our central marketing organisation, which is within Microsoft, where all of the other marketers sit. And using no acronyms, I work across all of our technology stack. So from the Azure Cloud Platform, Teams for Education, Office 365, Windows devices, Surface devices, and Minecraft, which is a hot favourite in my house, particularly in lockdown. And really trying to get in front of, teachers, IT managers, universities, and students, just like you guys, so that you know about our technology and you want to use it. So thank you. Back to you, Megan.
That's all right. I'll pass to Joan.
Thanks, Megan, and for passing it on. And thanks everyone for having me on this panel. I feel amazed to be on this panel with all these amazing panelists as well. So hi, my name's Joe and I'm the marketing coordinator. So I work closely with Megan and Claire in the education team. In terms of course, expanding on Claire's notion, empowering you as students to use the best and greatest Microsoft technologies to help facilitate your learning. And yes, I guess marketing in a nutshell, it's a very broad term. If I were to really define it, I think Seth Godin defines it really well. And I feel like I get to do this every single day working with Claire and Megan and team, is that marketing is the generous act of helping someone solve a problem and really their problem. So we in the education team hope we help you as students and your teachers seek to become better educators and students as you progress through your educational journey. So yes, thank you.
I love it. And over to you, Trent.
Thanks, Megan. Hey, everyone. My name is Trent Clayton, and my role is a client technology lead within the education sector. I look after a number of the education departments and sectors throughout Queensland. And my role is a product generalist and working with those departments on their digital transformation journey, informing them around Microsoft product technologies and capabilities, informing them around industry trends within the education sector, and also just helping them accelerate on their transformation journey, as mentioned. So helping provide those awesome tools which you as staff and students use every day in your teaching and learning lives.
Amazing. And over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks everybody for joining us. So my role today is the Chief Technology Officer here at Microsoft in Australia. It's not the only job I've had here. I've had a number of jobs. I've been here 14 years, so I've had lots of different roles. But as the Chief Technology Officer, without acronyms, so look, it's a very fancy way of saying I'm the person that spends their entire day talking to customers about Microsoft. I talk to people in government. I talk to people in ordinary companies like Bunnings and CBA and banks and everything else. And I talk about why they should use Microsoft as their technology provider, not because our technology is the best, but because we're a company that represents all that is important in their world around the things they care about, the communities they care about, the technology they trust in, the purposes they're trying to achieve. So best way to think about it is I don't sell our products, and I certainly don't do any more coding, although I used to do many years ago, but I know about how all those things work. I know about how to tell customers about how we do those in a way that if you don't do them, you can understand it. And so I essentially sell Microsoft, but not Microsoft products.
I love it. Thank you very much. And lucky last, Kenny.
Thanks, Megan. Look, it's an absolute privilege to be here. My name is Kenny. I've been at Microsoft for around 10 years. I have the absolute privilege to serve as the leader for our cybersecurity team in the customer success division here. So my team has a team of architects and engineers, and our sole mission and purpose and responsibility is to ensure that our customers are secure as they transform, as they transition to the cloud, as they use artificial intelligence and machine learning. So essentially we work very closely with our customers across Australia and New Zealand to help them be prepared for the very advanced threats that we actually see today, advanced cyber attacks. I'm sure most of you have actually heard plenty of media coverage on how sophisticated the cyber attacks of today have gotten. So that's essentially the purpose of my team. Thank you, Megan.
Amazing. Thank you. And thanks everyone for sharing. I think you all met the challenge of not using any Microsoft lingo or acronyms. I didn't hear any. So well done, team. I think a lot of students, and I know I sort of assumed, when I was in school around career journeys, and, there was one path to whatever career I might have selected. I think when I was in year 12, I wanted to be a PE teacher. And so what I think students are keen to hear about, and what hopefully students will hear from this group of people, is that there are many different pathways to where you find yourself in your career, and that your career might change from time to time. And so I've collected these amazing humans today because I know we all have different stories, including myself. So I'm going to sort of kick things off, and we're each going to take 3 or 4 minutes just to sort of talk through, where we went from school to here. And again, a bit of a challenge to fit it all into a short period of time in about 3 or 4 minutes. But I guess my journey began at school, where I loved school, loved the social side of school, but the academic side of school wasn't my forte. So I left school and went and did a TAFE course, starting to look at, I wanted to be that PE teacher, so I started to do some stuff around counselling, I think it was, can't even remember now. And then when I hit mature age at about 21, I went off to university. I gained mature age entry into a marketing degree, funnily enough, Claire and Joan. Did that for a year, and then I stopped. Then I went and had a baby, got married, I think, as well. And then I started my teaching degree. And so I did my 4-year degree and had 2 more children along the way there, and became a teacher. I was a primary teacher for about 5 minutes, and then I ended up teaching in high schools for about 10 years. Anyone on the call been taught by Mrs. Towns? Lachlan, where's your hand? So Lachlan, funnily enough, is one of my ex-students, which I found hilarious in the first meeting I had with him at Microsoft. So yeah, I was a teacher for 10 years and loved using technology in all that I did. And I saw an opportunity to become a Microsoft Expert Educator, which is our program we have for teachers who use all of our Microsoft technologies. So I did that for a little while still being a teacher, and then a job opportunity came up to basically become a teacher trainer on the education team. And I guess the rest is history. I did that role for about 4 or 5 years, and now I work in my full-time role at Microsoft. So yeah, it's been an interesting zigzag of a path for me to where I am today. And there's no way I could have predicted that when I was in year 12, when I was at university, even when I was teaching. So I find it really interesting to see where we end up on our journeys in life and in careers. So without further ado, I'll maybe work backwards this time. So without notice, Kenny, I'll hand over to you to tell your story.
Sure, thank you, Megan. So look, as I actually mentioned, I've been at Microsoft for 10 years, but my story, or should I actually say the transformation in my story, really began about 22 years ago. So I was about 18, and at that stage, I was actually completely prepared, completely planned to be a medical doctor. I was going to go to the University of Auckland, and I'd actually been preparing for it for many, many years. So this was in New Zealand. And yeah, my intention was to basically become either a psychiatrist or a neurologist. Those were the two things that really took my fancy. And I really loved that profession because it gave you the opportunity to serve the community and to really make a difference. That was not to be, and the reason for that was because I got diagnosed with an eye condition. So the eye condition is called retinitis pigmentosa. If you look it up on the internet, what you'll actually find is that it's an eye condition that degenerates over a period of time. So over the last 20 to 22 years, it's actually gone down. So I actually had 6x6 vision when I was about 18, 19. I think I probably have around 20% of my sight now. So that actually really put the whole plan, the life plan that I actually had in a complete jeopardy. And I tried my hand at a lot of things. I tried law in university. I tried science in university. I tried accounting in university, philosophy and mathematics and German and a whole raft of other things because I just wasn't sure what was going to resonate. But to cut a long story short, what really resonated in the end was computers. And the reason why I actually got into computer science and programming was because what I was actually finding is that increasingly I was relying more and more on computers for information access. So I thought, right, if I really understand these things, I can really make these things work for me. And that's computers. So I did a computer science degree, moved from New Zealand to Australia, worked as a computer programmer for a while, did a lot of global standards development work, so in the World Wide Web Consortium and so on and so forth. And then fast forward again, got very involved in the Microsoft ecosystem, became a Microsoft MVP, as they call it, Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. I'm so sorry, Megan, I just used an acronym there. Yeah, so basically did that for a few years, got very involved, then had the opportunity to come and work at Microsoft and serve our customers. Yeah, and started in the consulting firm or a consulting division of Microsoft in Australia. We're working with customers on helping them deploy Microsoft technology. So that's essentially my story. And I just wanted to mention that to Megan's point, it's absolutely important to plan and to be very intentional about your career. But life is very mysterious. It can actually take you in directions and in nooks and corners that you'd never thought. And look, in hindsight, if I look back, I think the career that I actually have today is potentially even more rewarding than what I actually thought the medical career was going to be for me personally. That's my story. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Kenny. That's amazing. How long did you spend in university? It sounds like you did about 8 degrees or started 8 degrees.
Oh, it was a very wayward journey, Megan. I think I was actually there for a good 5.5, 6 years.
Yeah, okay, cool. Amazing. Thank you. And over to Lee for some storytelling.
Sure, yeah, tough act to follow, Kenny. But some similarities, which I think we might find as we go through it. So look, first thing to bear in mind, this all happened a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. So it was hard for me to actually sit and remember the true timeline of my life. But what I do remember distinctly is I did really badly at school. So I grew up in the UK. I went to school in we had O-levels back then, and I did not pass any of them, which is like failing a HSC, if such a thing can happen. I just walked out of there with nothing. So what I had was no choices. And this was the key first lesson I learned on my journey of education. Without education, I didn't have a choice. Right back then, I think I wanted to work in forestry and land management. I think I wanted to go and chop down trees and build forests for a living. I don't know why that was the case, but that's what I remember distinctly. But this was back in the sort of late 70s, early 80s. My dad was deeply into technology. He brought these computers home. And a bit like Kenny sort of said, I started to get to play with them, and I started to realize that they made sense to me. I found something that I could connect with and devise a way to enjoy. And of course, at that stage, computers were pretty rare. They weren't in businesses were keeping paper records and doing manual processing. If you want to terrify yourself, kids, go look up something called a credit card imprinter. And that's how you used to go and pay for things in shops. That's what it was like back then. So computers weren't where they were, but I had no idea what I was going to do. I just had this passion for computing, but no educational background. And my dad sent me off to the Navy because I was working for him at the time. And he said, well, you can't stay here for the rest of your life. You need to find a career. Sent me off to the Navy. They had pretty low standards for entry, and I went off and spent 2 years or a year and a half it was in the Navy. Came back and realized that computers were starting to become a thing. So I went to the equivalent of TAFE in the UK, which was a college, a community college, got a BTEC certificate to convert what I had done abysmally in my high school certificate into something tangible to take to an ATAR, to take to a university, and managed to get a place at the one university that would take somebody that was a almost mature student with very little qualifications. And I did a degree at Bournemouth University in what was BIT, Business Information Technology, because I recognized at that point that this was about 1993, I graduated, business was needing technology and IT was going to be the driving force. So I did all that. And I got my first job with IBM in 1993 as an IBM mainframe operator, running JCL and COBOL. Sorry, they're just acronyms you've got to have out there, job control language and COBOL. Working night shift. So, for me, the first entry in my working life, I was doing shift work and running through nights. It's not dissimilar to what I was doing on the Navy, to be honest. And since then, I've sort of stayed in the tech industry. So I've been in the tech industry 28 years since my job at IBM. I've worked for IBM. It was a job. Didn't really know what I was doing. I still didn't have a sense of career strategy. Joined a startup because someone I knew had gone to the startup and they said it was fun. So I went over there and it was fun until I realized that startups don't have money and don't know where they're going to get the next money from. Thankfully, we were purchased by a company called RSA Security. For those of you who don't know who RSA Security is, they are the company that invented SSL. Ron Rivest and Shamir and Edelman, the three guys that invented public key cryptography that allows you to browse and connect to services like this. That was an amazing place. And I started to get a sense that this was an industry that I should build a career in. So we're talking about me being now in my early 30s and only starting to figure that out. So don't worry, kids, you've got plenty of time. So then in 2005, I joined Microsoft, and this is the great thing about being at Microsoft. I've been a security specialist. I launched Office 365 when we were here. I launched Azure Cloud, not me personally. I was part of the launch process. I've been a business manager for IoT, Internet of Things products. And then I left Microsoft, went to live in Asia for a couple of years, and came back to Microsoft as the CTO. And frankly, there's been no strategy to my life other than the fact that I arrived in Microsoft and found a place where it didn't matter what I'd learned before and my qualifications, it was what am I capable of applying myself to. And so my only learning out of this was, if you don't have a strategy or a career plan, you don't know where you want to be, apply yourself the maximum to whatever you're doing at that time, because it is the pathway to the next thing. You just need to, don't ever give up on it, even if the thing you're doing is the thing you don't want to be doing, put your 100% into it. And that's me.
Amazing. That's a really powerful finish. Thank you, Lee, so much. Now I've got to remember my screen's changed order now. Over to you, Trent. Thank you
Awesome.
for sharing your story.
Well, again, tough acts to follow, but also some similarities there. So this probably goes back to grade 8 or 9. I was quite fortunate that I sort of knew what excited me and knew what I wanted to do. From that sort of 13, 14, I was taking apart my home computers. I had a home network set up and was just, into gaming and, LANing with friends and things like that. So I'm like, no, this is what feels comfortable. I enjoy doing this. So how can I take this further? Fortunately, it's similar to Lee. I wasn't quite the academic at school. I didn't really apply myself. So some of the IT subjects which I wanted to do, I wasn't actually qualified to do because I wasn't doing a higher level maths. So for example, I'm from Queensland and we had a thing called OP scores. Now OPs, I think, recently transferred into ATAR, but the subjects I did were not OP accredited. So I knew that from me choosing them, I couldn't go to university. So I went, okay, all right, it'll either be TAFE or I'll leave school and try and get an IT traineeship or a junior IT role as quickly as possible. So I passed year 12 just, and then started applying for IT roles. And I ended up getting an interview for a school for an IT traineeship. And throughout that year, I could complete a Cert 2 in IT. And so I did that in that first year, and then the school kept me on. And then I worked in a number of schools as the IT person. So school people there, if you have the IT people who come around and fix all your computers and do all your thing, that's what I did for about 6 years in Queensland schools. And then I got a promotion into central office and started working on level 2, level 3 support desks for all 1,300 schools in Queensland, and then went into a team leader role into project management. So that was a thing which, like, project management, sure, it's still IT project management, so I'll pick this up. And so spent a few years doing IT project management, doing statewide rollouts, and then looked after some large teams, and sort of finished as a director of infrastructure with 90 or so direct IT reports. And then because over those years, those 15 years, so it ends up that was a 15-year journey. I worked across those departments. I worked heavily in Microsoft technologies across the entire time, and I loved everything Microsoft. And because of that, I actually built up some relationships with the Microsoft team locally over the last 3 or 4 years. And so I started looking at what was sort of next for my journey, and Microsoft had always been this goal which only, you know, mythical people work at because the standards are so high. And I thought, I never went to university. I did a diploma in TAFE, you know, a number of years ago. It's not going to work. But just having those skill sets and the attitude and just the passion, I suppose, for continuous learning and just loving the industry, I think that's what sort of helped me come in. So I've been at Microsoft almost 3 years now, doing the job I'm doing, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So the message is university, absolutely, that's great, but do not feel disheartened if university isn't your thing, or you want to go to TAFE, do something similar. There are multiple pathways in, which I think is the point of today's discussion. So that's
amazing.
me.
Thank you, Trent, so much. Now, switching from sunny Queensland down to West Side, where Joe and I live. Over to you, Joe, and to tell your story. Lots of schools dialing in from Sydney's West too, so hi to you all.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Megan and Trent. Wow, these stories are like just getting igniting the spark within me to tell mine. Yes, so the theme I would start off with is there is no one true path. There are many paths, and you just never know where you're going to end up. So right now I'm feeling a bit of imposter syndrome sitting just with this group of panelists. So I'll start off, I guess, from my perspective as a Year 10 student to my journey to now. So I guess when I was like you all in Year 10, I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. All I did was distract myself with tech in terms of like video games. I did that 24/7, and you know, my main drive for education was my parents, really. They didn't get to finish Year 10, so my goal was to finish Year 10. And I did, and I applied to a selective school, which I got into in Year 11 and 12. So I'm from Mount Druitt, and I got into St. Mary's Senior Selective High in Year 11 and 12. And I thought it was going to be smooth sailing from there because, you know, you get to a selective school, you think everything is all good. It wasn't. Year 11, I struggled hard out with independent learning and not being spoon-fed. And I actually failed half my subjects in Year 11, which I don't like to tell anyone. So please keep this a secret. And I was close to getting kicked out in Year 11. I remember during parent-teacher night, my parents were like, oh, we have to go meet your new teachers. And I was super anxious. I wanted to block it off and not think about it. So I drowned myself into video games. And one day I was like, I had to do it because I was getting so much pressure. So I booked one session with my one teacher in the one subject I did not fail, which was economics. And it was with my welfare teacher. So I booked it for the last time slot for parent-teacher interviews. And I got there and I was so nervous, so anxious. I was like, okay, big secret's coming out. I'm failing my studies. I'm not going to get past Year 12 or Year 11. So I did, and I got there, and all my other teachers were looking at me, hey, how come he didn't book a session and sort of thing. My parents were saying hi to everyone. And then I sat down with my welfare teacher. He's like, it's nice to meet you, to my parents. And I was ready. I thought he was ready to say, oh, he's failing all his subjects. But he didn't. He was like, Joan is a capable student. He's good. But he didn't actually talk about my impending doom that I was going through. The next day, my parents were full happy, and I felt so guilty. So I had a long and deep and meaningful talk with Screech because I felt like he saved my butt that day. And I didn't want to put myself in that position again. So in year 12, he really became my mentor. He really, I'm not going to talk about the personal issues I was going through at that time, but he was really the savior in my life at that time. So in year 12, I really cut the cord in terms of hanging out with like bad groups and getting a grip on my gaming habits. And I really studied my butt off. And in year 12, all I wanted to get was like a pass the HSC. And in the end, I actually got a good ATAR. Like my number one preference was to just get like 60 to get into policing at UWS. And my Screech again saved me. It's like, no, change your preferences around, because I didn't know how it worked out. I changed it to Bachelor of Business and Bachelor of Creative Intelligence at UTS, which required around a 95 at the time. And I was like already preparing to do a career in policing. And when I got the results, I got accepted and I was super shocked. I could not fathom that feeling. And then there was a next challenge. So I ended up studying a triple degree at UTS. So Bachelor of Business. I didn't know what I still wanted to do, even though I got into that degree or those degrees. So I did everything. So I did the Bachelor of Business, majoring in marketing and management / psychology. And then I did the Bachelor of Creative Intelligence and Innovation, which is more everything. And then Bachelor of Entrepreneurship in honors. So while you think that's all like good, it was actually a lot of failure. So like it was a bit of a struggle to manage those studies full time while working to support as well. And I really enjoyed education. That's why I love being on the education team, because it does have the power to transform your life with knowledge. And I guess with that degree, I was able to really learn the power of networking. Now, that's the thing as well, is like, if you don't know what you're doing, just do something you're passionate about and you will get there. So with all the industry experience I got through my degree, I was able to work and study overseas, for example. I got to do some internships around, but the best one I had was probably my experience at Microsoft when I was working part-time as a product advisor. There was this one event that I really wanted to attend and volunteer for, and that was EduTech 2019. And so that was 2 years ago now. And I met Megan and Claire, and I met the education team, and it was awesome. It was the best 2 to 3 days I got to spend with the education team. And I remember connecting with everyone and connecting with Claire, and I was sort of like, in my head, I was like, okay, if there's ever a job that I'm ever going to go for, it's definitely going to be a role in the education team. So I connected with Claire and everyone, and said goodbyes. Finished my degree, had many more failures after that. But after I finished my degree last year, I had another grad role, but then I saw Claire make a post on LinkedIn, and I was like, hey, remember me? I sent everything. I remember spending 5 hours on my CV and resume just to make it perfect before I sent it to Claire. And then here I am today. So yes, I didn't know what I wanted to do back then, but even when I was doing it at uni. So make sure you, just follow your passions, and don't worry too much about the future. Just focus on the present.
I love it. That's yet another great story. And I will introduce a new acronym, which we do really try and avoid at Microsoft. But what I learned long ago is that FAIL actually is an acronym, and it represents first attempt in learning. And I think, your story sort of represents, really strongly that idea that, to fail is okay, because you keep getting up and moving on. So thank you so much for sharing, Joanne. Now over to the amazing Claire.
Oh my God, that was
so hard to follow anyone.
I feel quite emotional. It's been really beautiful listening to all these stories, and I think it goes to show that there is no one path. I think, and just the importance of education, whether that's like TAFE or university. So look, thank you everyone for your stories. So my story, so I think it's been pretty windy like everybody else's, which is kind of cool. And I still kind of pinch myself that I work at Microsoft, to be honest, because had you asked me that 10 years ago that you would end up working at Microsoft, I would just have laughed at you. That was never in my plan. I didn't really even know what the cloud was kind of, 7 years ago, or what Office 365 was. So it's kind of ironic. But so I grew up in Tasmania, in a pretty sort of sheltered, part of Tasmania. Actually grew up very, very religious, where education wasn't something that was kind of on the cards or encouraged at all. In fact, it was kind of discouraged. And so like some of the other people have said, I dropped out of school in year 11. University was never something that I had thought about. No one in my family had gone to university. And so really to kind of escape all of that, shelteredness, I left Tasmania when I was 17, came up to the big smoke of Sydney. I never left. And I worked in kind of hospitality jobs. I worked as a dental nurse for a while. And then I worked in administration, actually, in an occupational rehab company. That's actually where I met my husband, which was, very nice. And then so after kind of doing a bunch of different things, I thought, I want to do more. Like I've had that sort of burning desire. And so I decided to go to university. I had to fight a lot of my own demons, to be honest with you, about I'm too stupid to go to university, I'm not smart enough, or, it really was a lot of things that I had to get over. But I ended up going to UNSW. I did a Bachelor of Arts in Media and Communications. I remember walking into the degree fair that they have at university in the roundhouse there, and they had all of the different degrees on offer and what they were all about, and honestly feeling like I wanted to hide under the table. My husband was with me, he was my boyfriend at the time, and my in-laws, they weren't my in-laws at the time, but we all still laughed that I was so overwhelmed. I had no idea. I felt like everyone else knew what they wanted to be and what they were doing, and I literally had no idea. But I was drawn to media and communications because I like words, I like creative stuff. So I did that. I made some very excellent coffee as a barista in those 4 years to support myself. And then in my last year of university, I got a job in a creative digital agency called Reactive, which is now owned by Accenture. So I was able to kind of get my foot in the door as an office manager there. So I took all the skills that I'd learned while I was kind of stuffing around, deciding to go to university, and all of the administration skills that I had. Got my foot in the door, worked really hard, had that thirst for learning on the job and shadowing people and so on. And then ended up, stayed there for 5 years. I went straight into a project manager role as soon as I graduated from university. And that gave me just so much amazing experience. It's essentially consulting. So you're working with lots of different industries, lots of different size companies, lots of different projects, mainly kind of web development, intranets, other types of creative projects. And, that role that I did actually helps me now still for because I worked across different industries and lots of different clients, some difficult clients. How do websites work? What's a functional specification? All these types of things, really helped me out. And now in my role as a marketing manager, I've got an understanding of how a creative agency works. And so when I'm working with them and I'm on the client side, I understand what's going on for them as well. And so that working relationship is kind of a lot easier. So I had my 2 beautiful girls. I had a couple of kids, like, most people on the call. Did some freelancing in that time, threw myself into motherhood, actually, but did some freelancing in between. And then I worked as a marketing specialist in a kitchenware e-commerce store for a little while. And again, that was combining my passion for cooking. So I'll say, I got a lot of stuff actually from the back room quite cheaply, which was a real plus from that job. But I was able to really take hold of their social media presence. I set up a blog, I set up influencer marketing, I was doing Facebook ads. So I was doing Photoshop, I learned how to do Photoshop and, all of these things, how to use an e-commerce platform, how to run, events in store, all these types of things. So lots and lots of hands-on, which was amazing, gave me a really good experience. And then I took that and I applied for a job at Microsoft. And I got it, which is just, unbelievable. And so it was in that small business social content. So again, I took the skills that I'd learned in that previous role, my agency experience, and then was able to bring that to Microsoft. And again, that thirst, that thirst for learning. I did that role for a couple of years, and then that led me to, where I am now, and a lot of amazing people in the way that I've worked with. And that's kind of how I ended up where I am. But I did write down a little tagline, which I thought was my little pearl of wisdom, which was everything that you do along the way can help you in future. So no matter if it's, you're making coffee, you're doing admin, you're a dental nurse, like whatever, you're working on a farm, whatever it may be, like all those skills that you pick up and you learn along the way are going to help you into future. So yeah, so much goodness here today, and hope you found this useful, and thank you to all my colleagues as well for your amazing stories. So back to you, Megan.
Thank you, Claire. It actually reminded me, I left out a major chunk of my pathway. I worked for my dad in the TAB for like 15 years, and the skills that I acquired in that time, I still use to this day, especially in regards to customer conversations and things like that. So, your tagline absolutely matters. I think what you do matters, even if it's not what you do forever. So thank you for sharing. All right, over to lucky last this time in Lachlan.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. And yeah, fantastic stories from everybody in this panel. Really, really great to see everybody's journey so far. My journey, so essentially I was raised out in Western Sydney, and yes, Megan Towns was my old high school computer tech teacher, so it was really fantastic reconnecting with her again unknowingly in one of my first meetings at Microsoft. But my background, I guess, is one where I didn't have a great deal of tech experience, and I still managed to end up at an incredible business like Microsoft. In high school, I was never really a high performer. I was always someone that was really capable, but was just a complete chatterbox in classes, always just was distracted and just could never settle down and just focus on anything for an extended period of time. I was always just getting bored and wanting to move to the next thing. I don't know, that's just how my brain, I guess, worked at that time. I was able to, throughout my HSC, get the marks that I needed to move into university, and I think that was another one where it was a quite challenging experience for myself. I went into physiotherapy to begin with at Western Sydney University out towards Campbelltown campus, and after 6 months was like, it's just not for me. Then I went into health science at the Hawkesbury campus. After that, thought that might be maybe where I want to go with my career and where I want to have a degree. And again, that was just I started moving through my first 6 months of that course, and again realised it wasn't for me. So I was at a bit of a crossroads where I kind of thought, I've essentially done the first 6 months of 2 different courses now, and they haven't really worked out. So I think what I might be best at doing is having a bit of a break and essentially moving into the workforce. So my first job, I essentially moved into the health, food and sports supplement industry early on. So I moved into a small retail role in a company called Vitamin King, which was really, really close and local. So essentially they were doing anything from like protein shakes and pre-workouts and fat burners, all the pretty cool stuff. So I did that for a period of time, and then I was lucky enough to be selected by one of the suppliers to become their New South Wales account manager. So that was essentially my first taste of really hardcore sales, managing a big territory being New South Wales and ACT all on my lonesome. So I definitely learned plenty of key tactics along the way doing that role, and faced plenty of challenges as well. And I think in hindsight, if I had to look back, there's plenty of things that I could have done better. But it was a fantastic experience to really dip my foot into the world of dealing directly with small businesses and ones that are particularly limited with cash flow as well. That's obviously an obstacle that many of us have to overcome. From there, I kind of felt like I wanted to step within a corporate industry and a corporate company. And there was a role that came up with Coca-Cola, the soft drink giants, or Coca-Cola Amatil it was at the time. So I was lucky enough to be successful for a role as a customer service representative with Coca-Cola. That role, essentially, I was working with some of the larger customers, like your Subways, Donut Kings, Hungry Jackses, and just working around contracts and around compliance to those contracts. So it was just a really good first experience around being in a larger corporate company. From there, I worked my way towards a business development executive role where I had my own kind of small territory to look after. And this is, again, looking after really small individual stores, essentially, like your local takeaway shop on the corner. And that was a really challenging experience. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you're dealing with people with limited cash flow, and you've got your competitors as well in Pepsi that are coming in trying to win the outlet as well. So I learned a lot around negotiating and around contracts, and a lot around hardcore selling essentially in that role. So that was a fantastic selling experience as well. From there, I'd say I was quite successful in that role, and was then at the pathway of, do I continue to pursue an account management career path, or do I go down people management? And I think for where I'd like to be in the long-term future, I felt like it was probably a smart and sensible choice to pursue people management. And there was a role that came up within our call center. I'd never worked in a call center before, never even been in one, had no idea as to how it operated. But I definitely felt like, this opportunity's come up, and to lead a team in a really fast-paced environment, would be just a fantastic step for my development. So was successful for a team manager role within the Coca-Cola call center, and I essentially led a team of 12 sales associates. So leading a large team quite early on in my career was absolutely a challenge. And again, another role that I think that I did quite well also. From there, I was at, again, like I feel like my career's all been around crossroads, and I come to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I actually have a bit of a passion for FMCG or soft drinks, essentially. I definitely feel like my passion is with technology. Just seeing the way the industry's grown over in such a, like obviously a long period of time, but just how exponentially it's grown in the last couple of years was absolutely something I wanted to be a part of. And I think sales being my absolute passion as well, I really wanted to step into the tech industry, and specifically with Microsoft. So I kept on looking through LinkedIn, eventually found the role, which is my role now, and applied for it. And after many interviews, was successful. And again, I just can't echo everyone in here enough that it's just such a fantastic experience being part of this company. We're literally at the pinnacle of innovation every single day. And just to think about how many people use our products and services every day is incredible as well. And feel very privileged to be working here. So that's essentially, my career journey so far. Thanks, Megan.
Amazing. Thank you, Lachlan, and thank you everyone for sharing those stories. Like Joe and I often feel like a bit of an imposter sometimes, but I think what I've learned finally after 6 years at Microsoft is that we all feel like imposters at certain points. And the good thing is that everyone has a unique journey. So thank you for sharing your unique journeys here. We've got about 15 minutes left before we wrap up. So what I'm going to do is I'm sort of just going to do some quick fire questions and direct them to specific people. Lachlan, I've got you pinned on the screen, so I'll start with you. And you have actually worked for another massive company in Coke, or Coca-Cola, sorry, to be more specific. Now you work for Microsoft. What do you say to people? What's it like to work for Microsoft? Because you are fairly new, I guess, to the company.
Coming off mute.
You good?
Can you hear me, Megan?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, awesome. So I guess what's it like to work for Microsoft? I would say that, I feel really proud to work for Microsoft. I just think the level of innovation, I guess what the brand means and stands for, really empowering everybody across the planet. I absolutely believe in that mission statement. And I would say whenever I tell a family member or a friend that, I was successful for a job at Microsoft, everybody's eyes light up and they're absolutely like, wow, that's incredible. I'd absolutely love to be in your shoes working at Microsoft. So I think, comparing the two versus Coca-Cola and Microsoft, both huge companies globally, I would say the one thing that I've noticed really early on in my career at Microsoft is just the culture. The culture is just fantastic, and it absolutely just drives me every day to want to perform at my best and to have a really long and sustainable career here at Microsoft. So I'd say the Microsoft culture is better than anywhere else, I would say. So I guess that's my couple of points.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I would say I've run a couple of these sorts of panels over the years, and that's always the answer that comes back. I think we really do have a great culture at Microsoft. So thank you. So next one, it's like no one's quite sure who's going to get the question next. So Joan, you obviously did a really cool degree, actually, or 3 degrees in the end. And you built skills and knowledge there. But what skills do you need in your job to do your job well? How many of them have come from your official learning experience, and how many of you sort of have been anecdotally developed along the way?
Good question. So I guess to ponder on it, there's 2 main skills that I think require every day, and I think number one, especially I think any role, is communication. Even if it's just small things, I work very closely with Claire every day, and it can be very, I guess this is why my second degree, I really enjoyed the Bachelor of Creative Intelligence and Innovation, is complexity. You can't really guess what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, you can plan for stuff, and you can prioritize things by, like, is it important, not important, things like that. But like, when things need to be deprioritized, you need to be able to communicate and say, hey, can we prioritize this over that? And when stuff happens where you can't really account for, where we need to get something raised, or we need to get send so much to our customers, XYZ, communication is key, and always to make sure like what you're doing, you have that support from your team, is amazing. And that's why I enjoy working with you and Claire and and everyone on the Edu team is because there's that level of trust and communication. I think you develop your own sense of a communication style as you go through as well. When I first started my first job as well, it's like I wasn't a very good communicator. Like I had to really learn how to listen with intent, develop my own listening skills. And you can only really do that. Like you can learn about stuff at uni, like you can learn case studies, you can learn what's happening, but like what's happening right now, like in the world we live in right now, it changes like rapidly. And yeah, just being able to put yourself in as many rooms as possible and gain that exposure and learn how to communicate with different types of experts and professions in their field I think is key. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, I think the skill I've developed over the past 12 months especially has been that I don't have to do it all alone. And what you just said about communication and connecting with people has been an integral part. I'm still learning that. And just with the work you and I did recently, I really did lean on you for support. So yeah, I think that communication piece is really important and something that is very rarely explicitly taught. So thanks for sharing. Okay, so over to Kenny now. Kenny works in the security field. I'm sort of keen to hear, what do you see, what do you think the future is for your role in working in security?
Egan, you're probably going to have to rein me in on this one because I can keep going on and on about this.
I'll give you 133 seconds.
Thank you. I'll try to keep to that. So look, we've been on a journey with security because what we're actually finding is that what we call a digital estate. So this is the entire let's say set of assets, digital assets, anything that's connected to a customer's internet environment, right? So it could actually be their printers, it could be their laptops, it could be their mobile phones, it could be a range of different devices. So we've been on a journey to ensure that we protect all the devices, right? So we protect the mobile phones, we protect the printers, the routers, everything else that's connected, whether that's fridges or microwaves or whatever it actually is. The next frontier of cybersecurity is to really look at how we protect human communication and human perception. So what I basically mean by that is, how do we actually protect against disinformation? We've seen plenty of disinformation over the last 12 to 18 months, at the thick of the pandemic. So how do we actually prevent against that? How do we prevent against discrimination and harassment on the internet? Because we do actually have a very prolific social media ecosystem, social media world that we actually live in. So how do we ensure that in this hyper-connected world, we're ensuring that the right information gets to the right people at the right time, and people are actually able to understand what's real and what's not real. If you look at something like the deepfake technology, you could basically have a video or have an audio that sounds like someone, but it was just completely created through artificial intelligence and machine learning. So if I think forward to the next 5 to 10 years, I think our real challenges in cybersecurity is going to be to really protect that human communication and the integrity of the human communication by protecting things like disinformation, discrimination and harassment and things like that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And I think everyone, many of us mentioned, security technology does move so quickly, and so your role is essential in supporting whatever comes next, but at that same rate. It's a really big challenge. So thank you for sharing your insights. All right, so over to Claire. Hopefully a somewhat easy one. What do you like most about your job?
Oh, great question. So I do love it. I think I'm surrounded by really clever and, nice people. So you consistently have a high bar for, what you can achieve. I think it's an organisation that really prioritises and promotes, continual learning, lifelong learning. So, for example, on Friday this week, we've got one of our 12 learning days that we're allocated each year. And so that's a day where we can, we are encouraged to turn off our email, turn off our Teams, not answer the phone, and really dedicate it to learning. So, I love learning, so I love that aspect. And I also love the autonomy and flexibility. So I said before, I'm a mum. And so I love the fact that I can, drop my kids off at school in the morning and, work around them. My husband also has got that flexibility. So, it's certainly not just me that's doing the pickups. And what was the last one? Oh, the last one was just the challenge, the continual challenge. It's the place where, you would never get bored at Microsoft. There is always something to learn. There is always a new, there's new roles that you can go for. There's just always something to get involved in. We also have, we've got lots of coming in with an acronym, ERG, which is Employee Resource Group. So things like, women at Microsoft or families at Microsoft or, there's a number of different groups that you can, if you have a particular passion for something, fundraising or, particular groups that you're really passionate about, you can get involved. So look, that's just a few. I could go on and on, but there's many, many reasons to kind of love working at Microsoft.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm sure we could all share, 3 or 4 completely different ones as well, different reasons why we love working at Microsoft. Feel free to pop them into the chat, panel people. So thanks, Claire. So you sort of alluded to it just then, we do have that flexibility at Microsoft to make our personal lives and our home lives more flexible. But we also have, that challenge of balance. So I'll direct this question to Trent. And we've obviously seen our work, the way we work change over the last 18 months as well. But, Trent, how do you balance that, career, friends, family, hobbies, in your life?
Probably not the best that I could, is the short answer. No, it's it is tough, and especially now that work is being blended in a lot more with home since the introduction of COVID. I think you definitely need to be honest with yourself about having those boundaries. Whereas, you're in a typical office, you're there, typical times 9 to 5, you leave there, you come home and you're disconnected. Whereas at home, it's a bit more blended. So I think definitely being honest with yourself, carving out that time, because without that one, there'll be impact on you and your family, but also, without balance, you have burnout as well. So physical and mental health and well-being is very important. I know, especially if I'm at home and I have a day of back-to-back meetings, if I just go for a run or something for 15-20 minutes, get the blood flow and come back, it would feel a lot better as if I just did not move for the entire day. So you need those, otherwise you're not performing at your best, and it's a sort of a win-win. So I don't think anybody has got it down to an art, but you just got to keep working at it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually find the whole leaving the house thing the best strategy. Yeah, I think you do as well. Just step outside the front door, and it's amazing how much you can switch off and find that balance. So thanks for sharing. All right, lucky last this time around for our quick fire questions. Lee, and again, we've sort of addressed it in the last couple of questions. How do you see the world of work changing due to the impact of a certain pandemic we've had in the last 18 months?
Okay, thank you for the lucky last. And I had great answers to all the other questions I wanted to answer, but I never got to them. Look, the obvious one is there. I mean, clearly COVID's changed the way we do work, and we've all seen that and felt that here in the working world. And I know I've got a 14-year-old kid and a 12-year-old daughter who are seeing the change that COVID means to their education and their lives. Look, I think I have a perennially positive view on the world, and we have to look at this and say, actually, what it has done is it's demonstrated 2 things. We don't need to fly and travel and be everywhere all the time. We can actually get the job done without that. And that's good, because from an ecological, sustainable standpoint, traveling is not a good thing. And we can build teams that are stretched across our entire nation and globally, and we can find the right people for anywhere in Australia. And it means that I now have the choice, and my kids will have a choice potentially in the future to live wherever their life takes them and do the job they want to do for the company they want to do it for. And they're never constrained by that. So I'm hoping that that's the world we build out of this. That is a choice of, and I'll make my point, choice. Choice is the most important thing you can build in your future children. It's really hard to quantify the value of what it is to be able to sit down and go, I think I will choose to do that today. So that's my parting comment.
Thank you. And I think that really will resonate for a lot of our schools who are joining from regional and remote areas, and I think I have seen that's where it's opening up. You're no longer bound by where you live as to where you can work. And I think that's going to be, there's not many silver linings from the last 18 months and COVID, but I think that will be one in regards to opening up your opportunities. So, yeah. Now, thank you very much for everyone sharing. I'm just going to ask everyone a final, I realize Lachlan had to go to another meeting, but just as a quick wrap up, You're going to be limited this time to 5 words only. So 5 words only. If you were to give your, you know, a lot of students joining are in, you know, year 9, 10, 11, and 9, 10, 11, or 9, 10, or 11, far out. If you were to think about your year 10 self, what advice would you give to yourself in 5 words or less? Let's go. I'll just shoot around on my screen. Kenny.
Sorry, Megan, I just couldn't come off mute in time. 5 words of advice. Define your values very clearly and live by it. That's not quite 5 words, but define design principles and live by it.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for meeting the parameters.
Thank you.
Joan.
Take it day by day.
Nice. Trent.
Mine's a little bit more. It's find what you love and chase it, but maybe find, love, chase something. I don't know.
Love it. Isn't that like eat, love, pray? I love it.
That's it.
Claire.
Mine is also not 5, but it's not far off it. You'll learn the most in the times when you feel out of your depth. That has certainly been my experience as I look back at my life and my working life. The times when I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Are the times when I
in the deep end.
Jump in the deep. That's a good one. Yes. Yeah. So that's the time when you'll learn the most.
I love it. Lee.
6 words. Be bold, listen more, ask questions.
I love it. And now I have to challenge myself as well. I'm going to go choose fun, choose happy, work less. That's 6 as well. None of us can follow rules. I love it. It's really well done by us. So we've got a couple of minutes left. I know we've got a few schools joining with students in the audience. So your teachers might be able to type any questions they have into the chat or come off mute. However, I'm aware also, I think it was Trent mentioned back-to-back meetings. I too am in one of those days of back-to-back meetings from 9 a.m. till 5:30. I had lunch on the lawn while listening to one of those meetings. So I do have to jump in 1 minute. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat or come off mute now. Otherwise, you do have access to that Teams community. So if you pop your questions into that Teams space in the panel and presenters channel, I'll make sure that we pass those questions on to our panel and we can get them answered after the fact. So yeah, we might actually just wrap it up. We'll stop the recording. Big thank you to my 6 panelists. You're amazing to step outside your usual workday of back-to-back meetings and share your career journeys and share your experiences. Thank you so very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for the
much.
opportunity, Megan. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, team.
Everyone.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks.